Assalamu alaikum. My name is Mariam, and I am basically Pi and AI ambassador for Islamabad region. और हम कुछ अरसे बाद अपनी इवेंट्स कराते रहते हैं पाई एंड एआई के ऊपर, उसकी डिफरेंट थीम्स के ऊपर, नेचुरल लैंग्वेज प्रोसेसिंग के ऊपर, कंप्यूटर विजन पर, मशीन लर्निंग पर। तो डिफरेंट हमारे जो है वो सेशंस प्रीवियसली भी हुए हैं और अभी भी हम जो है वो आज का सेशन जो है वो कर रहे हैं अबाउट राइज ऑफ एनएलपी। कि नेचुरल लैंग्वेज प्रोसेसिंग का जो राइज है वो कितना इंपॉर्टेंट है, या उसके अंदर कितनी एडवांसमेंट हो चुकी है और क्या क्या कहाँ कहाँ पे वो यूज़ हो सकता है। तो जो हमारे जो स्पीकर हैं वो आज है मिस्टर हसन जलील, जो कि सीनियर मशीन लर्निंग इंजीनियर हैं एट कैनेडियन स्टार्टअप के अंदर। और वो अपना जो इंट्रोडक्शन है वो खुद इंशाल्लाह अभी आप जब वो सेशन स्टार्ट करेंगे तो वो बताएंगे। और इसके अलावा एक बहुत बड़ी एक इम्पॉर्टेंट अनाउंसमेंट है जो मैं करना चाहती हूँ फॉर पार्टिसिपेंट्स के लिए, कि जब ये इवेंट ख़त्म होगा, मतलब ये आफ्टर द सेशन, एक सर्वे आपको सर्कुलेट किया जाएगा जो कि deeplearning.ai की तरफ से सर्वे है। और वो सर्वे अगर आप जो है वो फिल करते हैं, यानी कि जो भी पार्टिसिपेंट उसको फिल करता है, तो फिर उसको जो है वो एक 50% जो है वो फर्स्ट मंथ सब्सक्रिप्शन फॉर एनी कोर्सेज ऑफ deeplearning.ai ऑन कोर्सेरा जो है वो आपको मिलता है, उसका कूपन मिलता है। और वो फॉर द टाइम फॉर फ्यू यानी कि मंथ्स के लिए होता है वो वैलिड। तो वो आपको आपकी फिल करने के ऊपर मिलता है। तो जब आप ये सेशन देख लें उसके बाद आपको वो जो सर्वे आएगा तो वो जरूर फिल करिएगा, तो आपको उसका बहुत बेनिफिट मिलेगा। उसके कोर्सेज कौन कौन से हैं जिसके ऊपर आपको डिस्काउंट मिलेगा, वो मैं लिंक आपके साथ चैट में शेयर कर देती हूँ। वो वाले कोर्सेज आप जाकर चैट में भी देख सकते हैं। सो ओवर टू हसन, वो अपना जो है वो सेशन स्टार्ट करेंगे। तो ओवर टू हसन।
अस्सलाम वालेकुम, हाय गाइस, सॉरी मैं जरा फेसबुक पे शेयर कर रहा था सेशन. लेट मी जस्ट ओपन माय स्लाइड्स एंड okay. Okay, can everyone see my screen? Mariam, can you please confirm कि screen sharing चल रही है? You're muted, Mariam.
Yes, perfect, Hasan. It looks perfect.
Okay, thank you. Let me just start. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to this session of Pi and AI and Deep Learning. Deeplearning.ai. I'm Syed Hassan Jalil, and today the session is about rise of NLP. Starting off a little about myself, I am Syed Hassan Jalil. That is what I used to look like when I had hair. Those days are gone now. I am a senior machine learning engineer at a Canadian startup. The startup is still in stealth mode, so hence not sharing the name. But the startup works in the medical domain, so applying artificial intelligence in the medical sector. Personally, I have 3 years of experience working with machine learning. I did my master's in computer science from the University of Amsterdam. And overall, I am a geek and I love everything tech related, may it be gadgets, electronics, and a big DC fan, as you can see from the background. So what was the motivation behind the session today? So basically, in recent past, I was carrying out interviews for this firm. I was consulting for this firm, and they wanted to create a machine AI team, and I was doing interviews for them. And so I met with the team for the company, and they told me, yeah, we have these projects. They showed me a bit details about the projects, and majority of the projects were related to NLP. They did not have any computer vision projects to deal with. All of them were NLP, and they wanted me to help them hire the right people for it. So I took interviews mid-level लोगों के भी लिए थे, senior कुछ resources भी थे, उनके भी लिए थे. And what I found out in those interviews is कि none of most of all of the people were very very well versed in computer vision. उनको पता था कि जी computer vision क्या होता है, CNN क्या होता है, CNN train किस तरह करते हैं. उसके अलावा some of them even knew कि parameter किस तरह optimize किए जाते हैं convolutional neural network के, how to make your model better, what different techniques you can try, data augmentation क्या होती है image में. So all of them have very good experience with computer vision. लेकिन when I asked them NLP question, तो most of them didn't really know much. बिल्कुल basic सी knowledge थी उन लोगों की NLP के बारे में. Some of them knew what NER are, लेकिन किस तरह train करना ये नहीं पता था. I only came across one person who had good in-depth knowledge of NLP, and he knew about transformers and intention and NER, and he knew all the details of NLP. And that got me thinking कि क्या reason है. And besides this, अगर आप किसी भी university के let's say open house में जाएं, तो वहाँ पे जितने भी final year projects होते हैं, almost all of them are always computer vision. People would be doing image segmentation, image classification, image detection, or using computer vision to work on images and video for their application. But you will hardly find any projects in the NLP domain. So that got me thinking कि यार computer vision इतना famous है पाकिस्तान में, NLP क्यों नहीं है? And that was my major motivation behind this session as well. Now, if you look at computer vision, so why is it so famous? So honestly, the starting off, I personally also think यार computer vision is kind of cool. ठीक है, आपके पास image होता है, उसके बाद कोई feed it to a network and you get this really nice output image. आपने segmentation किया तो you have like really nice segments, your model is good. Or you give it something and it outputs, you give it an image, it outputs an image, and you can visualize it easily. Or you can work with videos, आप real time videos पे काम कर सकते हैं, and then you have like something cool to show off कि यार देखो मैंने ये model train किया था, ये मैंने image pass किया, ये video pass की तो उसने ये काम कर लिया उसके ऊपर. So I personally think like computer vision is kind of cool and it really like looks flashy as well. Also, computer vision got a breakthrough really early on. जो पेपर था जिसने AlexNet इंट्रोड्यूस कराया था 2012 में, that was a huge breakthrough for computer vision. So basically in this paper, they applied convolutional neural networks and they ran it on a GPU and they got outstanding results. And in 2012, that is when the landscape for computer vision changed. With the introduction of AlexNet and CNN, a lot of previous things which were not possible to achieve were now achievable, and a lot of problems could be solved. And if you look at the paper that introduced AlexNet, it has been cited over 74,000 times in the past 8 years. So like it's a very famous paper, and like it really made a huge difference. And after this paper, people started realizing you can actually use deep learning to solve real-time, real-life image problems. और फिर वही हो गया, people realize के previously you had image manipulation techniques. You could use different functions from OpenCV and you can try different rule-based approaches to segment images, or to even do something like face detection and stuff, and you could do it without deep learning. Lekin with the introduction of CNNs and being able to train them on GPUs, it opened a whole new opportunities on how you can actually take a lot of data, you can train your model on it and get amazing results. And what it resulted in is that there was a lot of funding given to computer vision, not just in academia. A lot of venture capitalists and investment funds started funding startups and companies to work on products. And Silicon Valley was full of startups working in the computer vision domain, and it really boosted this domain. और उसका result ये हुआ कि I'm sure all of people attending here would have attended other workshops, the tutorials as well for machine learning and deep learning. And like all the tutorials that I have ever, or the workshops or tutorials I have ever attended, when they tell you basic about neural networks, they go into deep learning, or example may they always have a computer vision example, because that is like famous. So besides just being famous in the industry and academia, even in this domain of talks and workshop, जो बंदा भी कभी भी deep learning example देता है, तो वो they pick a computer vision problem and train a model for that. I have never been to a workshop जिसमें someone will say, okay, ये deep learning है, so we are going to use this NLP algorithm in deep learning to show how it works. And that also got more students interested, because students attend these workshops, they look at these tutorial videos online, and all of them usually focus on computer vision. So that gave a boost to computer vision. उसकी वजह से हुआ ये कि पाकिस्तान में majority students and majority like early career वाले लोग are working in computer vision, and a lot of companies also working in computer vision with not much focus on NLP. And in recent time, NLP has really progressed, and NLP is now capable of doing some amazing things. Okay, so going to the topic of today's session, what exactly is NLP? So NLP stands for natural language processing, and the whole concept is that we want to give the computer the ability to understand, derive meaning, and extract information from natural languages. So basically, जिस तरह a human, if you talk to them or if you give them a written sentence, they can actually understand it and they can extract information and features from it. We want the machine to do the same, like we did with computer vision के आपको एक image हो जिससे human recognize कर लेता है, computer भी recognize कर सके, इसी तरह हम natural language में भी ये करना चाहते हैं. NLP is divided into two major segments. NLU, which stands for Natural Language Understanding. So in our current situation, you guys, the attendees, are listening to what I'm saying, and that is you. So you basically listen to it and you process it. So you're doing natural language understanding. You're basically getting some natural language as an input, and you're understanding what it says. While I, on the other hand, I'm doing NLG, so natural language generation. I'm generating, so I'm speaking and generating natural language, and these are the two domains of natural language processing that we want to our machines to achieve. So they should not only be able to understand what is being said or what is written or a text that is given to them, but they should also be able to derive and produce it as well. NLP के अगर हम most common uses देखें, जो कि हमें नजर यानी कि जो हमारी इंडस्ट्री में भी यूज हो रही होती हैं या समथिंग दैट वी माइट हैव वर्क विद, तो फर्स्ट वी हैव NER. NER stands for name entity recognition. So basically, given an input, some text, some paragraph or something, your program should be able to extract important entities that you want from it. So for example, अगर आपके पास कोई यानी कि आपके पास कोई text है, तो NER might be able to extract all the names of the countries in it or all the pronouns from it. So it learns what a particular entity look like. So it has learned what a name looks like. So it might learn a name always starts with a capital letter, or it learns some features about names, and then it goes through a text and tries to find other entities which are similar to that. And there are already a lot of NER trained models out there, which pick major things like country names, city names, human names, temperature and stuff like that. And you can train your own NER कि आपके particular मकसद के लिए अगर आप किसी किस्म की entities extract करना चाहते हैं text से, तो वो भी कर सकें. Then another field where NLP is really used is sentiment analysis. What sentiment analysis basically does is कि given some input, it tries to find out कि इस input का sentiment क्या है. Is it positive sentiment? Is it negative sentiment? For example, आपके पास tweets हैं, 1 लाख tweets हैं आपके पास. You want to know how many of those tweets had a positive sentiment to them. And this can be very useful for the industry. For example, अगर मेरी कोई company है और I want to know what people think about my company, so I can go on social media, extract all the messages in which my company was tagged, and try to see what the sentiment of these messages was. If it was negative, then I need to figure out my company is doing something wrong. Okay, people are talking negative about it. And if it was positive, then I can know, okay, yeah, I'm doing something right. Another application of NLP is chatbots, very common. We know of a lot of voice chatbots such as Alexa, Siri, Google Home. I guess I don't know what Google's is called. Yeah, so you have chatbots. Chatbots are really important for the industry as well. A lot of websites now, you go to the help support is chatbots, because most websites के जो question answering होती है customer साथ बहुत straightforward होती है. So if you can replace a human by a robot that is on and all the time and can handle multiple requests in parallel, then why not replace it with a chatbot? And finally, you have intent detection. Intent detection is basically कि given an input, you try to figure out कि इस input की intent क्या है. So for example, if in your chatbot, if you want to have a chatbot that sets up appointments, तो जब बंदा reply, you say, okay, tomorrow at 6 p.m. and the person replies, no, I am busy. So you need to know that the intent of this message was negative. And so then you can say, okay, and then we can have another date. Or you want to know if your intent was positive. Yeah, if the intent was hostile. And chatbots really use intent detection. If you use something like Rasa or Google Dialogflow, so you basically say, okay, if this intent is caught, to say this. So intent detection is also a very big implementation of natural language processing and is used a lot. So I showed you the timeline of computer vision, and I said computer vision was lucky to get an early breakthrough in 2012. Compared that to the timeline of NLP, so NLP saw progress a bit late. Yani कि the first big breakthrough in NLP was Word2Vec, and that was introduced in early 2013. And Word2Vec is at the core of it a shallow neural network. It does not really use deep learning that way. And if you look at like a major breakthrough in NLP, that came in the mid of 2017 with the transformer architecture that was introduced by people working at Google. So you see this 5 years, and I would believe कि जो transformer जो आया था NLP में, that is equivalent to the CNNs which came in computer vision. So finally in NLP, something equivalent, which is just as big of a breakthrough and just as important and give as much of a performance boost as CNNs did for computer vision. Transformer did that for NLP, and that came in mid of 2017. So there's this 5 years gap where computer vision was able to get a head start, and more progress was made in computer vision due to it getting its breakthrough much earlier. And that is the reason why I believe computer vision caught on more. And since then, the transformer architecture introduced होने के बाद, there were a lot of progress made on it. You have Elmo, you have BERT, you have Elmo and you have BERT, और उसके बाद फिर GPT, GPT-2, GPT-3. I think everyone would have heard, and all the media buzz that OpenAI got by introducing GPT. So then in recent past, the past 3 years, leaps and bounds of progress have been made in the natural language processing domain, and now natural language generation and understanding is at a whole new level. So starting with NLP, word2vec was the first basic breakthrough in NLP. तो basically इसमें the thing is कि हमारे जितने भी आपके even normal neural networks हैं, या any classical machine learning approach you have, they don't deal with words. All these approaches and algorithms take numbers as input, because computer cannot understand words. They need a numerical representation. So the something very important to do was to be able to convert our words into a number representation, and to do it in a good way. Now, it's not difficult to come up with a numeric representation of words. You can, for example, every letter has an ASCII code assigned to it. So you can basically just convert your word into ASCII codes. Like in that way, your numeric representation does not represent any good contextual information about the word itself. Let's say हमारे पास example है कि today is a good day and today is a great day. ठीक है, तो me and you, we can completely understand that good and great both means यानी कि something कोई अच्छी चीज है. So they are related. So these both sentences, they can be interchanged and they have generally the same meaning. Like if you convert these sentences into their ASCII representation, so good and great will have completely different ASCII representation. And if you feed it to any machine learning algorithm, it would not be able to, learn that these two words are same or why they are same. So the numeric representation of your word should also carry some contextual information about it. So that is where word2vec came in. So the whole concept of word2vec was that it converts your word into word embeddings. So what word embeddings are is that it is a numerical representation in form of vectors for each word. What word2vec was able to achieve is that words which are similar or have similar meaning. So if you plot these vectors into, so great has great has 5 letters and GOD. Good, good has 4 letters. So you can basically convert this into a vector representation, and you can plot these vectors in, if you plot them, so a good word embedding, the vector representation in space of these two words should be close enough. That is what word2vec was able to achieve. कि आपके जो words हैं which have similar meaning or which are related to each other, they should lie closer to each other in vector space. So this way your numerical representation of your words not only converts it in number that machine can learn, but they also have some amount of contextual information which tells the machine कि ये जो loves and good and great, since they're closer to each other in the spatial representation, and the equilibrium distance between them is less. So it means that these words are related and I have to learn something related to that. So we have some examples here. That the queen or woman hai, they are closer to each other. What this shows is that queen and woman and king and man are close to each other. Man and woman are each close to each other. Cat and cats are like lying closer to each other. For example, that cat and fast are far away. So it shows that within this vector space, it shows that cat and fast aren't that related because they don't lie close to each other. But cat and cats lie close to each other, which shows that these things are similar. So besides just giving a numerical representation, of your words, you're also able to give some information to the model. What the word embeddings I have created, they carry some information as well. So how Word2Vec is trained, you have basically it's a shallow neural network, and you give it a huge amount of data and you let it train over it, and it tries to figure out which word embeddings do I have to assign to these words such that they words lying closer to each other are actually close in the vector space as well. And you can easily find Word2Vec trained models out there which you can use to convert your sentences to vector representation. So then fast text was introduced, and fast text basically used the same concept of Word2Vec. लेकिन with Word2Vec the thing is कि हर word की एक word embedding बनती है. So if during runtime it comes across a word that it did not have in training, it would not be able to figure out its correct word embedding because it wouldn't really know how it relates to the other words. What fast text did was instead of just calculating the word embedding for each word, it also creates the word embedding for the n-grams. So n-grams basically is a group of n being a number, a group of n letters. So you can say a 2-gram would be, if you have my name Hassan, a 2-gram would be HASSSSAAN. So basically splitting the words into groups of 2, and n-gram would be a group of 3. So what fasttext does is, beside calculating the word embedding for the word itself, it calculates the word embedding for the n-grams as well. So if you have the word aquarium, it will split up into AQ, AQU, QUA, and it will create all these n-grams and create the word vector embeddings for them, word embeddings for them. So when it comes across a new word, let's say Aquarius wasn't in its dictionary, so Word2Vec would not be able to assign it good embeddings because it will have no information about it. Again, fast text would be able to split it into n-grams and say the n-grams of aquarium and Aquarius match. So AQ, QU, UA, these word grams exist both in aquarium and Aquarius. So these words should be somehow related, and it will give it a word embedding similar to aquarium. And we know both of these words are like derived from the word aqua. So Aquarius and aquarium both have aqua in it, and they are related to water bodies. So hence it will be using n-grams be able to assign good word embeddings, and that was an improvement. But all of that was good. You had some, so both of these were shallow neural networks. The researchers proved that even if you use a deep neural network for these tasks, you would not get too much improvement. So a shallow neural network is good enough. And you did not really have things that could really, utilize deep neural networks till this paper came along. Attention is all you need was a paper introduced by people working at Google. And this was the big breakthrough that NLP was so desperately looking for. And just like CNN changed the landscape of computer vision, this paper changed the landscape of NLP. Since then, we have seen insane progress. This paper basically introduced transformer architecture. And since the introduction of this architecture, we have seen some breakthrough progress and updates in NLP. And attention is all you need is what your BERT and Elmo, not these two, the natural language processing models, BERT and Elmo, OpenAI's GPT-2, GPT-1, and GPT-3 are based on. And just like the paper of AlexNet got cited 75,000 times, which basically shows that in future research, how much was the concept from this paper used. Similarly, attention is all you need got cited 15,000 times in the past 3 years. So it shows that further 15,000 research papers built upon the information shared in this paper. So this was again the big breakthrough that was needed. So what exactly is transformer architecture? This is here where we'll get a bit more technical in this session. I will not go into the maths. I will just discuss the basic idea. So before we move on to transformer, what we need to understand is attention. So as the paper says, attention is all you need. What exactly is the mechanism of attention? So before this concept was introduced, NLP, so basically trying to applying deep neural networks in NLP was using a simple encoder decoder block, and they were usually run using either RNNs or LSTMs. And the problem with that is that RNNs use a fixed vector size. So the output, so you to an RNN you feed a sentence word by word, and the output of the first word goes as the input to the calculation of your next word. And basically you have a fixed vector size which represents the finding of this run. Or the problem with that is कि अगर आपका sequence छोटा है, so that fixed vector size can store that all that information that the neural network has learned in each layer. Lekin if you have a bigger sequence, so the problem arises is because of the fixed vector size, some information that the network has already learned may be lost in subsequent steps, because that fixed vector size just cannot hold all that information. So what attention mechanism introduced is, instead of having a fixed vector, what you do is, given your input and your output, you try to figure out what impact does each word in input has on output. So basically, let's take an example. We want to translate the sentence, my name is Hassan, to Urdu. So mera naam Hassan hai. So an intention would basically tell the output word mera, which input word has more impact on it. And the attention, it will create an attention matrix where each input word will have a value. So in our case, since the translation of my is mera, so for mera, the word my will have the highest value of attention. And so on. For every output word, you want to know how that input word related to it and what big of an impact that made. So instead of having a fixed vector size, now you have this presentation where each word in your output is linked with each word in the input, and you're able to utilize that. Another concept which is also used in transformer is self-attention. So what self-attention basically tells you is, for each word and input, how much the other words of the input impacted, or how much the other words are important, or in simple ways, that each word of if you're focusing on one word of the input, what other word should you also pay the focus. So we have an example. There's a sentence, the big red dog. So if we take the word the, so which other words are important to it? Since we are talking about the refers to the dog, so the word dog will have the biggest impact. इसी तरह, if you look at the big word and how much each other word, how much it affects each other word, or how much other words have impact on it, so the big is a quality for the dog. Hence, the dog has more, like highlighted in a darker shade to show that it has more impact on it. So this is the basic concept of attention and self-attention that was introduced. This was introduced before 2017, and this is what Transformer basically used. So what exactly is a transformer network? So transformer network is an encoder decoder block, encoder decoder network, just like you would have in your previous encoder and decoders. Like, in the biggest difference that it made was that previously, as I said, if you wanted to pass a sentence, you have to pass one word, and it will calculate a vector for it, and that will also serve as an input for the next word. So you couldn't parallelize this task. Hence, RNN and LSTMs are extremely slow and extremely compute intensive. What transformer network allows you to do is that it doesn't go word by word. You feed it the whole sentence as and simultaneously, and it runs on the whole sentence simultaneously, which allows it to parallelize it. And instead of doing word by word, it goes sentence by sentence, or it takes the whole sentence as an input, and hence it is much faster. So getting into the architecture of and the reason behind getting into the architecture of transformer network itself. As I said, the transformer consists of two blocks, encoder we have here and a decoder block that we have here. We'll basically go to the steps of this encoder and decoder blocks and discuss basically what they do. We'll not go into the mathematical details of it. That is outside the scope of this session. So if you have an input, the first thing you have to do is, because the input is a sentence, you have to convert it into input embeddings. As we discussed, you can use word2vec or some other already existing word embedding algorithm to create these embeddings. Secondly, another thing that transformer does is it besides, so word embedding basically just gives you a vector presentation of a word, but it does not tell you where that word exists in a sentence. And where a word exists in a sentence can really help you understand that sentence better. So what they also did is that they appended positional encoding on top of it. They use sine and cosine functions to do this. Basically, besides just having a word embedding, now a positional embedding was encoding was also appended on it, which basically gives additional information to your model. Okay, this is the word embedding and this is the positional embedding. So you know what the word is in a numeric presentation. You also know where it lies in the sentence. Okay. Once that is done and you have your word in a vector form, it goes into this attention block. Now, this is a self-attention block. It's a multi-headed attention block. We can discuss multi-headed in the Q&A if you want, but I'll not go to detail of that. So basically what it does is for your given word embedding, it tries to find out how important each word is, what impact each word has on the other word of the sentence. So it creates this vector presentation, which shows the attention for all of the words in the input. Then we pass it to a feed-forward neural. So this is basically a fully connected neural network. So you pass your word embedding with positional encoding and with attention on it to a fully connected neural network. You add some normalizations in between them. And then this is your output of your encoder. So what basically the encoder did, it converted your input into word embeddings, appended positional encoding into it, and figured out how each word within the input affects the word in the output. How each word within the input sentence affects each other. On the decoder side, you have something similar. First, you take your, so what you do is to encoder, you feed your input. Let's say you want translation. So to encoder, you'll feed the input sentence, my name is Hassan. And to the decoder, you pass your output. You pass, mera naam Hassan hai. So this is how it learns. You basically pass it both the input and the output, and you want it to learn how did we arrive from the input to the output. So the decoder first gets the output. It again creates embedding out of them, appends position encoding onto it. Then it does self-attention as well. And then normalization. So till this step, it's pretty much similar to the encoder. After this, we again apply attention, but this time we take the output from the encoder and the output coming here from the decoder, and then pass both of them to this attention head. So what it does is basically you know how each word in the input affects each other, and you know how each word in the output affects each other. And now you pass this to another attention mechanism, which basically you pass it to another attention mechanism, which basically we have a question, but I think we'll get to the QA in the end. So if you guys don't mind, let me just go through the presentation and we'll come back to all the Q&As. What it does is that it takes your, so it has information for the input, and it knows how each word in the input affect each other. And it has its attention from the output and know how word in the output affect each other. And then it finds attention between them. Okay, how each word in the input affects each word in the output. So now you not only know how the words and input affect each other, the words and output affect each other, but how the input words are affecting the output words. So this really helps your machine understand not only the input words, the output words, but also how do they map to each other. And then you again have a fully connected neural network. And in stage 5, depending on what you want to achieve with this transformer network, you go ahead and you append a softmax layer, or you get the desired output that you want. So basically, as I said, so you have some encoder blocks, you have some decoder blocks. The encoder, you pass an input, and then the decoder will pass the output. Now, one of the, what are these transformer models really useful for? you can do a lot of things with these transformer models. For example, we discussed the example of translation. Given a word in a sentence in one language, it may be able to convert the sentence into another language. You can do summarization. Summarization is something we have all done in metric and FSC. English ke papers, Urdu ke papers, make given a big amount of text, you summarize it into a small chunk. This is really useful, especially in academia. If you can write a really nice model which summarizes research papers, you can save hours and hours and days and months for graduate students. You can do text prediction. For example, all of us have the text prediction in our cell phones. You type some word and it gives you some prediction. Now, most probably the text prediction in our cell phones don't really use transformers or too much deep neural networks, but with transformers you can make some amazing word prediction. So text prediction, so if you write a few words, it can predict what next word should be. And I think Google uses that in its in Gmail suite as well. So if you're writing an email, it starts suggesting what should come next. And you can also do question answer. If you give a transformer a question, it gives you an answer. You can do multiple choice questions, or that can be again be used in things like chatbots. So a transformer can actually, with a transformer model and a good transformer network, you can actually achieve all of these things. So let's look at some of the implementations of transformer. As I said, the transformer was the big breakthrough which gave a rise to all of other models. What these models basically are called language models. So the task of these models is to basically understand the language. So they are trying to do NLU, natural language understanding. And once they understand it, they can actually generate it as well. And one of the implementation of transformer model was BERT, so bidirectional encoder representation from transformers. So what BERT does is that we talked about transformer has like two blocks, an encoder and a decoder. So it splits the encoder and just takes the encoder, it leaves out the decoder and just stack them. So one encoder on top of another, like, so output of one encoder goes into the next, and you just stack them in deep layers. And then you train your network onto it. And the training for pretty much all the transformer models goes in two steps. The first one is an unsupervised training, which the task of this training is to understand the language itself. So what you do is that you give it a huge amount of data. So you can take a Wikipedia data set or anything, and you let the model learn the language. So there are different tasks that they use to do it. So masking is one of them. So when feeding a sentence, it would mask one or two words in that sentence, feed it to the network, and see if the network is able to predict. So this can be unsupervised. You don't need to manually mask it. You can write a code which masks some sentence, and then you pass it to the model and sees if the model can predict which words were masked. And hence the model learns. Another way of doing this is that next sentence prediction. So you pass a sentence to your model and you pass the next sentence. And then you ask the model that the other sentence that you pass, uh, so you pass it one sentence and the other, and another sentence, and then you ask the model, is this the next sentence in this word sequence? So the model predicts, okay, this sentence make sense? So let's say my name is Hassan, and I'm giving this session, and I work at a startup. So you'll pass it sentence, my name is Hassan, and my and another sentence, and ask, does this sentence follow this one? So this way, using an unsupervised mechanism, you can train your model on large amount of data set, and you basically pre-train it to get an understanding of the language. Once your model has been trained on a huge amount of unsupervised pre-training data set, then you can fine tune it for your particular problem. So for example, if you want to do translations, then you can start giving it input word and their translation and start feeding it that. So it does translation. If you want to do like question answers, then you can give it a question, and then it is supervised learning from their own words, and then the answer for it. And then you let, so your model already understands language, and now it's trying to understand how I'm going to use that language to achieve my task. So that is how BERT and other transformer models actually work. You train them in two steps. Compared to BERT, GPT does the opposite. So BERT was just taking encoder blocks and stacking them on top of each other. And GPT, on the other hand, just take these decoder blocks. So you have your encoder blocks. So this is So BERT is, stacking these encoder blocks on top of each other and making a model out of that. And GPT is stacking these decoder blocks on top of each other and making a model out of that. So again, similar to BERT, GPT first gets trained on unsupervised huge amount of data. GPT-1 was trained on 7,000 book corpus. So it was a text from 7,000 books that was available online. And with GPT-2 and 3, so there wasn't any change in the architecture itself, in the sense that they did not change the blocks, the decoder blocks or the transformer architecture. But what they just did is they stacked more decoder blocks on top of each other and just gave it more data. So basically you add more layers and you give it more data. So compared to GPT, GPT-2 had 1.5 billion parameters and GPT-3 had 175 billion parameters. And so basically what OpenAI is doing, they have this concept, you have decoders and transformers, which seems to work. And what they're doing is they're not really innovating per se, but they're just throwing more data at it and adding more layers. And that is how they're getting improvement from one version to another. And the thing is, companies like Google and OpenAI have the resources to do this. So if you wanted to train GPT-3 from scratch, you would need computational power in order of like millions of dollars would be spent in the computational power needed to actually train GPT-2 or GPT-3. So a normal person can't really do it. And that, like, personally for me, raises a question that since 2017, we have seen other progress in NLP as well, but the big major breakthrough is just taking these transformer models and stacking them on top of each other and giving them more data. So you're not really changing the core architecture itself. You're just increasing the layers and increasing the data. And that is something a company like Google or OpenAI, who have the resources to do it, can do. But what about students or researchers and other organizations? Since they don't really have that computational power or those resources, they can't really compete that much with OpenAI and Google. And the only way someone else is going to come up with a better language model is if they actually, come up with a new breakthrough like the transformer model was, and come up with a whole new architecture, which depends on lesser amount of resources and lesser amount of data to get better results. But till then, it's an interesting thing that most researchers and most students will not be able to compete with these giants. And OpenAI did not even release GPT-2, the final version of it, and GPT-3 is again not open source anymore, and it's behind a paywall. So these organizations having the resources are actually just throwing more money at these models and getting better results, and they are going to get a lot of benefits out of it. It's just something that came to my mind when I was reading more about GPT-2, GPT-3, and all these models. So yeah. So use cases. So as I said, like GPT-2 and then GPT-3 got a lot of media coverage, and people said it could do insane things. And OpenAI even said that we'll not release the full GPT-2 model because we are afraid people will start using it to, people will start using it to create fake news and fake articles. So it's better that we don't release the whole model. So what is GPT actually capable of? So someone made this example. Okay, basically you give a text representation of a model that you want to generate. So build a model to classify images into 5 groups. The data set has 25,000 images with an input shape of 500 by 500. So it is like, a team lead telling his team member, yaar, ye model banana hai, ye hamara task hai, so this is the input. Just like saying it out in words or explaining, writing it down, and expecting that person to be able to create that model. And sorry, yeah. So given the input, GPT-3, this particular trained implementation of GPT-3 was actually able to write a Keras model, which takes the shape as told in the input image, which knows how many input there are, how many different classes there are, and was able to create a model. So if anyone ever says that, if anyone wants to discuss between CNN and NLP, you can go ahead and tell them that my model, NLP model, can create a CNN model. Wait. Is there any problem with my voice? Can people hear me? Because I just got a message from Zoom that Mariam,
Your
anyone
voice
can
is
tell me if you guys can
your
hear me?
voice is okay, Hassan. Your voice is okay. थोड़ा सा वो interrupt हो रहा था, but now it's fine. You can carry on.
Yeah, Zoom gave me a message that my connection was unstable. So yeah, basically you can tell them, can your CNN model create an NLP model? Because my NLP model can create a CNN model. So yeah, now we have the upper hand. So basically this was just a simple use case of what something like GPT-3 is capable of. But besides that, in real life, this in like new progress in NLP has vast amount of implementation. So chatbots is something that can really utilize these models, because previously your chatbots were intent detection based. So it was trying to pick out intent from messages. So it might not really understand the message itself. But it was able to pick an intent out of it and decide what to do based on that intent. But now with these models, your computer actually understands the language and is able to, create a more suited, better output. And similarly, summarizing text, as I discussed, can be a very useful implementation of it. I know there's a startup which basically for any given book, you give it, it gives you out, a 15-minute summary that you can read and know what exactly happened in that book. Because, everyone is short of time. So summarization can be something that can be used in academics and just be used generally. And one very important field is actually extracting relevant information from text. So you have insane amount of unstructured, unclean data in textual representation. And if you can create something that takes this data and gets extract the important information from it, it can be very useful. And that is something the company I am working on is also doing. We are applying NLP on unstructured, unclean medical data and extracting the information that we need out of it. And that is something a lot of startups are getting into as well. And since 2017, and as I said, like, people know about CNN, but I personally believe NLP is the next big thing. If you look at this chart of fundings that different sectors of machine learning got over the years, NLP back in 2016 was getting less than, I think this would be less than $1 billion of funding. And 2017, it was increased, but since the introduction of Transformer in 2018, it got close to $4 billion in funding. So over a year, it has more than doubled from around, I would say this would be somewhere like 1.5 billion, 1 billion actually, to almost 4 billion. So it has almost quadrupled, and it has increased further in 2019 and 20. And a lot of new startups are popping up. And just as investors were throwing money at computer vision startups back in 2012, 2015, and then cryptocurrency became the new blockchain became the new buzzword. And back, I remember when I was doing my master in 2016, my professor was like, dude, if you want to get funding, just add blockchain to whatever title you have of your master thesis, and you'll get government funding for it. So back then, investors and government was funding anything that had a blockchain in it. Now NLP has become that thing. Investors are actively looking for companies that are working in the NLP domain to fund them, and they know, because we have had these breakthroughs, and NLP can now actually be utilized to solve a lot more real life problems. So investors are looking for that opportunity. So if anyone wants to actually jump into has a startup or is thinking of different has a startup or one is thinking of a product, maybe look into the NLP domain and see how and a good place to look for is how you can clean and extract information and utilize unstructured, unclean data to get a nice some important information out of it. So NLP is an interesting domain. And yeah, that was basically my presentation. The whole concept behind this basically was to discuss the recent rise in NLP, not just in academia, but in the industry as well, and what led to this rise and what the future looks like. So I personally believe that, as I said, NLP is the next big thing. And with time, we'll see more and more language models that will be able to do a lot of things which were previously thought were not possible. And we will see NLP becoming just as popular or even more popular, well, just as popular as computer vision. And it's a nice time for people to start, jumping in and learning more about NLP.
So yeah, हसन, हमारे पास कुछ क्वेश्चंस हैं, वन बाय वन मैं आपसे पूछती हूँ, आप उनके आंसर्स करते जाएं। एक जो है वो पार्टिसिपेंट्स, हमजा उनका नाम है, वो पूछ रहे हैं कि रोबोटिक्स हॉबियस्ट हैं, वो खुद से रोबोटिक्स में काम करते हैं, और कैन यू सजेस्ट अ कोर्स इन व्हिच ही यूज एनएलपी इन एक्सप्लेन्ड इन रोबोटिक्स, यानी कि हाउ टू हेल्प एनएलपी इन फॉर रोबोटिक्स के लिए, तो वो उसके लिए कौन सा कोई कोर्स रिकमेंडेशन कर दें उनको?
Personally, I have not came across a course that is like robotics is something that I've never looked into, so I cannot help you in that particular domain. But robotics, maybe I think NLP will start playing a very important role, especially if you look at robotics which take commands from users. So text-based command, which will then get converted to speech-based command, which will get converted to text, and then the robot will play a role in that. So that would definitely be an interesting field to look into. Of course, I'm sorry, as I said, I've never looked into robotics or courses in that particular domain, but I'm pretty sure we can find something. There is my Facebook and my Instagram, and my LinkedIn is shared here. I think Mariam will also share these details with participants, so you can shoot me up and I will look into this and I'll get back to you in that, Hamza.
ठीक है, श्योर, थैंक यू। अच्छा, एक और क्वेश्चन है, कैन यू प्लीज मेंशन द एग्जैक्ट यूज केस ऑफ दिस transformer network being used today in different industries, for example insurance, banks? Also, how much data is required to train this model? Give details on API, whether we can use transfer learning in this case. So this is a very detailed question, I guess.
I'll start with the last question first. So of course you're going to use transfer learning because these language models are trained on huge data sets. As I said, if you wanted to train GPT-3 from scratch, you would need a couple of millions of dollars worth of computation to actually train it. So you need transfer learning. So you can pick up GPT-1 and 2 are pretty much available. There are other models that are already pre-trained for you and use them. As for implementation, again, so you take, so as I said, there are two steps to training a language model. The first is the pre-training, which basically trains on a large data set, and then your model somehow learns to understand the language, and then you fine tune it for your particular example. So the particular example in banking, there was this example of a person who had used GPT-3 to create on Excel spreadsheets such that it was able to. So he had on one column, I did not share that link, but on one column he was writing like countries, and on the other column he was doing populations. Okay, and then he just like wrote some new countries name in one of the columns, and then he dragged the other column in which he had used GPT-3 language model, and the model was able to understand from the previous example that for each country I'm pasting the population. So it was able to fetch that from the internet and fill that spreadsheet itself. So in banking as well, you can think of ways where your language model and learning might be able to automate this, that certain computations that you do manually, if given enough data, it can learn, okay, for incoming inputs, I'm going to like, based on if the data is like this, I can do these kind of computations on them. Also for banking, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of information on data of how different people have been able to, spend, and then, summarization is something you can, for your huge amount of data in banks, you can summarize it to get the relevant information out of that. You can summarize the interaction different people have had with their clients within banks and other sectors as well, and try to extract important information which might help you improve your customer success rate. So language model is simple. Every field you can think of, humans communicate, and humans communicate using languages. And if humans can do it, and if you can train a language model that can somehow learn what humans are communicating and how they are taking decision based on those communications, you can apply it, and that could be in any field. So he asked about bank fine tuning, and there was another thing. There was like 3 parts to it.
Sorry.
There were 3 parts to questions. Is there a way for me to actually view these questions as well? Because I'm
हाँ जी,
clicking on
बिल्कुल आप
Q&A.
देख सकते हैं, ये नीचे Q&A वाला जो सेक्शन आ रहा है वहां पर क्लिक करेंगे तो वहां पे सारे क्वेश्चंस लिस्टेड है.
Okay. Wait, audience Q&A, start new. So I have an option for a start new, but
No, Zoom पे,
nothing.
Zoom पे. It's on Zoom.
I actually clicked on Zoom, so.
It's okay, मैं
Yeah,
आपको जो है ना पूरा
got it.
मिल गया? ठीक है.
Yeah, I think everyone can see it this now. मेरी screen share हो रही होगी.
हाँ जी, बिल्कुल ऐसे. True.
Yeah, so as I discussed, going on to Saif Ali's question, I'll just start answering here. Going to Saif Ali's question from Manila, RN and LSTM, the major difference was that you pass the whole sentence to these, and these are parallelized and they work much faster. Also, they are using the attention mechanism in them, which also gives them more information. But the major breakthrough, the reason RNN and LSTMs are not good at keeping information for too long. So RNN and LSTM work fine when your sequences are small because they're fixed vector size, but they break. So if you have like a couple, so for example, if you have like 3 sentences and a name was mentioned in the first sentence, most RNN and LSTMs would not be able, and they have to, generate the 4th sentence. By the 4th sentence, they would have lost the information from the first sentence and might not have that name in their vector space anymore, or would not have that name in their memory. While these transformer models are able to hold information for longer, and since they work parallelly, you can actually they actually are much faster. It's like you give it the whole sentence instead of word by word, which makes them faster, which makes them less, due to which you can actually have deeper networks, which you couldn't do before with RNN or LSTM because they would just get too slow.
ठीक है, ओके, थैंक यू. इसके अलावा अगला क्वेश्चन भी कर दें आंसर, ताकि हमारे पास सिर्फ 5 मिनट्स, बिल्कुल 4 मिनट्स रह गए हैं.
What is function use according to our region? Our region means it's quite complicated. I was working with GPT-2 as well. So you can transform. These languages these are trained on different languages. So GPT-2 is, and even I think BERT is trained on many languages. Like they're most probably not trained on Urdu. So you could try to fine tune them on Urdu, and maybe it can use some of the grammatical understanding it got from other languages to learn on Urdu. Like on our region, if you want to have language models, you will have to train most probably one from scratch, given our own data set. Now in Urdu, the availability of data set is a problem. The computational resources to actually train it is a problem. So in our region, sadly, due to lack of resources and progress generally made in tech, it might not be good, but you should always think globally. If you can do something in English, it applies to Pakistan as much as it applies to America. So if you have a product which does that, but you can of course take some, you can create a translation bot out of it as well, and you just fine tune it on Urdu, and hopefully it will be able to get you some good results. What is the future of NLP? The future of NLP is bright, I would say. Basically, as transformers were introduced in 2017, and researchers are working on coming with another breakthrough, which would, as I said, GPT-2, GPT-3, all of these are just building on top of transformers and just adding more data and more text, but they aren't really doing some breakthrough in that sense. But researchers working for it, and it is expected that something greater than transformer, which does not need the computational resources and the amount of data that transformer need, will arrive soon. And people are hopeful, but even within what we have right now, we have good enough language models to start taking NLP to industry and actually solving real life cases. Is there use of regional language levels? Again, back to the question. So as I said, these models have been trained on a lot of language. There's French models available. There are models that are available in all the major languages, but actually doing that in regional Urdu, we might have to work. Do you know any guiding course on which on this which you shared example? So I don't know about a guiding course, but there are a couple of very good YouTube videos by. So there's a very good YouTube video on GPT by Numberphile as well, and there's this other YouTube channel which has very good YouTube videos on all the concepts, including GPT transform itself, and like my basic understanding is from that YouTube video. Like personally, I am not good at reading text. I learned from YouTube videos. I'll share those details. I'll ask Mariam if they can share those video links with the participants. Share a quick insight about some practical problems where we can apply transformers for classification tasks for NLP-based problems. So classification task. This goes into one of our in my current company as well. So if you can in NLP and using a language model, if you can understand what a particular sentence is saying, you can actually classify them. So let's say even in something like spam detection, you can now start using it. You can classify an email based on reading it. A language, you can train a model that understands what like English is, and you can train it what non-spam English email looks like and what spam English email looks like. And you can create a much better spam detection, which is able to classify, okay, this is a spam email or this is not a spam email. And again, all the things that I discovered, sentiment analysis and stuff like that, once you have a really good language model on the base, you can start, creating, you can start taking that language model and fine tuning it for these particular examples to do better intent detection, to do better sentiment analysis, to do better spam detection and stuff like that.
ओके, थैंक यू सो मच हसन, आपके बहुत ही अच्छा सेशन था, बहुत इन्फॉर्मेटिव सेशन था। मेरी बस ये है कि आपकी जो इन्फॉर्मेशन आप इनसे शेयर करना चाहते हैं पार्टिसिपेंट से, वो आप मुझे भेज दीजिएगा, फिर मैं इनको जो पोस्ट इवेंट ईमेल होगी उसमें इनको फॉरवर्ड कर दूंगी। और सेकंड चीज़ ये कि जो कोर्सेरा के कुछ कोर्सेज हैं डीप लर्निंग के अंडर, तो जो डीप लर्निंग के कोर्सेज हैं वो उनका कुछ जो है वो डिस्काउंट मिलेगा आपको कूपन, तो वो जितने भी पार्टिसिपेंट्स हैं वो लोग पोस्ट इवेंट सर्वे जरूर फिल आउट करें, so they can get the discount. So thank you so much once again, Mr. Hassan, or inshallah in future we will have some more sessions in detail about NLP as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for inviting me. That took our time on a Saturday to attend this session. I was hoping people will come because NLP, as I said, isn't that famous. मुझे डर था लोग नहीं आएंगे. Well, thank you everyone.
Thank you.
I'll ask Mariam to share my contact details and some of the links from these questions. They'll be sent out to all of you.
Okay. Thank you so much. Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.